Is this better? Is this more Christmassy? Christmas! Okay, so we are now in the second week of Christmas month, and got some lights, got a little Santa hat that's really fucking tight. I'm getting a headache from this. It's starting to ruin my holiday fucking spirit. Coffee. But we're in the second week, and I apologize. This review is just a little bit late. It didn't come out on Friday as usual. I'm sorry about that. Some stuff came up, but luckily I've got a couple too many movies at the movies for anyone who cares. And of course, Star Wars comes out this week. I'm already wearing a shirt when I do because I'm so freaking excited. Star Wars The Last Jedi is coming out. It's getting fantastic reviews, and I cannot wait to see it. I'm going to see it this coming Thursday night on the 14th, I believe, December 14th. I cannot wait. And when I do the review, I'll be wearing a different Star Wars shirt because I bought a bunch of them because I'm a nerd. But before I get to that, because we're still a couple days away, we're still in Christmas month. And last time I watched Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and this time I'm actually going to choose a comedy. It's not really a Christmas comedy. It's not like Christmas Vacation or something like that. It's just a comedy that takes place during the Christmas season, but I've never seen it. It's got two great comedic actors in it. Actually, several great comedic actors. I've always wanted to see it, and the movie I'm talking about is, of course, Trading Places. That's right, Trading Places, the movie from 1983, had to look at it for a second, starring Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. And this was right at the beginning of Eddie Murphy's comedic rise in the 80s, and one of his bigger hits in the 80s. It was directed by John Landis, and it was a huge hit when it came out. I've seen parts of it because of TV, like TBS and stuff like that, but I've never watched the whole thing. And I remember what I saw didn't really make me laugh, yet it's a very highly rated comedy. But I wanted to see if it would hold up, and like I said, it takes place during the Christmas season. Maybe it'll even have a Christmas message, I don't know. But Trading Places, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't trade places with anybody in the world because I love what I do here, because I'm just Joe, I have a lot of coffee, got a lot of movies, and it's Christmas season, and I'm freaking excited. So I'm gonna go watch Trading Places, and bye! Okay. Whew. Alrighty. Whew. I did that because, look, get that right. Look at their mouths. Both just, they want coffee. But anyway, I just watched Trading Places, and yeah, I just watched it. So, kind of mixed feelings about this one, to be quite honest. I wish I would have chosen another one for Christmas month. Kind of brought me down a tiny little bit, but let's get into it. As always, I start off with the plot/script. Okay, so the plot of Trading Places is basically Dan Aykroyd is, rich, and he works for this company called Duke and Duke, and he's kicking ass, and he's snobby and everything else, kind of like what we probably think Dan Aykroyd is like in real life, and hopefully isn't. But he's just snobby and not really likable, and he works for the Duke brothers, these two older guys, Don Amici, and I don't know the other actor's name, but the Duke brothers, and they're rich, and they all work in the stock market, and Dan Aykroyd is like their go-to guy or whatever. But they run across Eddie Murphy, who is basically a swindler on the street, homeless, dirty, not really a bad guy. He's just trying to make a buck. Not an honest buck, but a buck. The two older guys decide to have an experiment for $1. Because you'd think they'd be like toilet paper to them, but I think that's the joke. It is the joke. But they make a bet that they could switch Dan Aykroyd's character Winthrop and Eddie Murphy's character Valentine and turn a street guy into what Winthrop was, and maybe Winthrop into a street guy. I guess they're just bored. When you're that rich, even though you've got a lot to do and you make a lot of money and you have the world as your oyster, you still think of shit like this. And even though that's lame, I still want to be rich. But regardless, they pull this off and they switched it to, they frame Dan Aykroyd's character and he loses everything. And eventually he runs into a prostitute played by Jamie Lee Curtis. 80s Jamie Lee Curtis. Hell, even 2017 Jamie Lee Curtis is still hot as hell. But runs into her, they help each other out, they kind of fall for each other. Eddie Murphy begins to very quickly change his ways once he gets money. They give him Dan Aykroyd's old life, his job, his house, his butler, played by Denham Elliott, which was nice to see him outside of Indiana Jones, and you know they successfully do switch them, and both of them, Eddie Murphy thrives, Dan Aykroyd just kind of goes lower. But eventually the two of them figure out what's going on, and they try to get even with the Duke brothers. And basically that's the plot. The script it's fine. Like it's not a badly put together script. I would put it as slightly above average. And really that's kind of how I feel about the movie. It's slightly above average. I don't feel like this movie aged as well, at least not for me. The movie it's funny. It's got some good social commentary. It's got some good jokes. But honestly, I didn't LOL once. I didn't laugh out loud once at this movie, even at the stuff that was pretty funny. And the movie kept kind of losing me. I was losing interest quite a bit, quite frankly. For some reason, I did not connect with this movie. I love Eddie Murphy, especially in his prime. I do love Dan Aykroyd in his prime. And Denham Elliott was hilarious in this. Well, okay, I always do this. I'll get to that in cast and characters. But the script it's for the most part well pieced together, but really Winthrop and Valentine don't learn anything. I was expecting them from switching places to really learn, and they don't. I mean, the ending, it's a satisfying ending in a way, but then again it's not, because what did they learn? You know, will Dan Aykroyd's character not treat poor people like crap anymore? Will Eddie Murphy what did he learn? He learned absolutely nothing. Dan Aykroyd might have learned a little bit. Jamie Lee Curtis's character, nobody learned anything. There was no lessons learned. The Duke brothers, I guess, learned a lesson, but they're the villains, so I don't care. And that's really my main gripe with this, is that in terms of the movie, there's really no point, and that's fine. There's a lot of movies, especially comedies, where they don't need to have a message or anything, but for the commentary this movie was doing, the social commentary, and it just felt like there should have been some sort of message, and there wasn't. And I just felt it was a lost opportunity. I think it would have made the movie more memorable, at least to me. But the script was fine. The plot was fine. It was taken off of, I believe, a Mark Twain book or something like that. It was based off something, or they just stole it. And, you know, the plot itself, it's a good plot. It's a good idea for a comedy. It's a great idea for a comedy. And they did utilize it successfully, obviously. And it did work. But, you know, the humor just, to me, is no longer laugh out loud funny. And there are some moments that are absolutely cringeworthy and don't hold up as well. Like Dan Aykroyd in blackface. I'm not saying the scene was racially insensitive that much. It is, but it's not, but it just doesn't hold up. And, you know, I don't mind that they dropped the N-word a few times, or say Negro, because it made sense to the plot. It made complete sense, because these rich people were douchebags, racist douchebags. So that I don't mind, but it just, for some reason, the movie just doesn't hold up for me. So the script, at least in 2017, is just slightly above average. All right, next up, I talk about the cast/lead characters. The cast in this is good. It's like the highlight of the movie. Nobody was weak. The two guys, Don Ameche, a future Academy Award winner for Cocoon, he really kind of hit a big career, either resurgence or his best run in his career in the 80s. And, you know, he's great in this. The guy who plays his brother, those two together, they are funny. And you believe their characters, these snobby rich socialites who were just kind of dicks. You know, I like them. They were great. Eddie Murphy is a lot of fun, but I just feel like he didn't have a lot to do in this. And it kind of feels like they held him back. They didn't let him do as much improv as he should have been able to do. He probably could have improved his character's part a lot more. And Dan Aykroyd was actually very convincing in his part one of the best acting performances, I think, of him as this Winthrop. I enjoyed him in this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis and Denham Elliott really kind of steal the show with their supporting parts. They're both the most memorable parts of this movie, even more so than Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. So the casting of this was about pitch perfect. The characters, though, I think are lacking. I started going into that because it's bothering me. You know, the Duke brothers, I like their characters, and really everything that happens to them, I thought all that was great. Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, there was just so much. It's almost a 2-hour movie, and there's just so much that could have, I don't know, I don't know how it could have been changed. The movie itself is fine. It's slightly above average to me, but I just felt there was more that could have been done with their characters, more we could have learned, definitely more they could have learned. So I felt their characters were disappointing because they didn't really learn anything. This journey they went on was completely unnecessary, which, thinking about it, I guess it is somewhat the point, because the bet was unnecessary. But Jamie Lee Curtis's character was very memorable. Not just because she took her top off a few times, but she just made it memorable. She added that Jamie Lee Curtis charm, and I liked her character. And Denham Elliott, for some reason, he's always memorable. He was a great actor, and he knew how to take scenes and be memorable even if he didn't have much to do. And in this movie, he doesn't really have much to do, yet, you know, they're good. But to me, the characters didn't have enough funny stuff to say. This is just not the comedy I was expecting. I expected a lot more clever comedy from the script and for the characters. So the characters, even though played by wonderful actors, I thought was lacking. All right, last but not least, I talk about the directing, editing, and the music. The legendary John Landis, I have no complaints about his direction. It was a very well-directed movie. I especially enjoyed the beginning scene, and that can, I guess, go with the editing as well, just showing the difference between rich and poor. Or honestly, white and black, and not saying all black people are poor or all white people are rich. That's just how they showcased it in the movie. Basically all the rich people were white, and they kind of focused on the black population just because Eddie Murphy was the guy coming from that. And I liked the beginning shots. There was no dialogue, it was just the music and edited together to kind of show the difference between the two, until finally focusing on the rich for a second before we get to Eddie Murphy's character, who is kind of a swindler and poor. And I enjoyed that. And the movie looked great. It actually is a very well-directed comedy, almost too well-directed, if I may say so. Like, John Landis kind of went above and beyond, because he's a wonderful director. And Trading Places, that was one of the highlights. The direction was fantastic. And the editing, again, it was paced well enough. I was losing interest, but that was more having to do with the characters and the script, and the humor not really being there. But for a 2-hour movie, it flowed very well. It went by fast. I can't really think of much they could have taken out, which earlier I said there should have been more put in. I don't know how that would have been possible. It's almost a 2-hour movie, but it did flow very well. The editing was good. And the music is actually, to me, the biggest highlight. I really liked the movie in this. It fit perfectly. It was a great match for the humor when it was there, for the characters, for the setting, for the plot. The music in this is definitely a highlight. I believe it did get an Academy Award nomination, and it very much deserved it. It's a weird thing to say because it's not like the most memorable soundtrack in the world. It's far from it, but the music just was so pitch perfect that it was memorable, at least to me, so I love the music. All right, my final thoughts on Trading Places. I'm disappointed, to be quite honest. I did not get from this movie what I thought I would get. I thought I'd get a lot of, you know, Eddie Murphy goodness, and maybe this was before, I think this was before, I don't know if this was before 48 Hours, which I still haven't seen, that or the sequel. That'll be on my list sometime next year, I think, because I want to see more Eddie Murphy movies. I know this was before Beverly Hills Cop, and Beverly Hills Cop is one of my all-time favorite movies, so I knew this wasn't going to be that. And he had to, his character, you know, and him, they had to balance between him and Dan Aykroyd. It was a double act for the movie. I get that, but I just didn't really feel like Eddie was comfortable in this movie. He wasn't able to go all out, and maybe because he was still new and he wasn't comfortable kind of, you know, being a force to be reckoned with, which he became, you know, where he just was like, I'm Eddie Murphy, I know how to make this funny, and he did. And I don't think he had that confidence yet, at least in movies. And I just felt like he was holding himself back because they wouldn't let him just go all out. But Dan Aykroyd was good. Like I said, the cast is fantastic. The plot is very good and interesting, and they do piece it together quite well. There's just a lot of missed opportunities, and to me it's distracting. And like I said, it didn't really make me laugh that much. I'm sorry, it didn't make me laugh at all. It didn't even make me chuckle. I just kind of went like, like, that was a decent joke, and that's kind of what this movie is. It hasn't aged well. It's just a decent movie. So it's set around Christmas time, which again wasn't really necessary, but it did fit because, you know, rich, poor, this time of year, holiday season. I get why they did that, and maybe it was a Christmas movie back then, I'm honestly not sure. But I will say this, if you want to watch a Christmas movie you've never seen, and you think of Trading Places, I really don't recommend it. I mean, maybe you'll like it, maybe I'm missing something. It's not a bad movie, it's just slightly above average for me, and I was disappointed. I was really hoping for a lot more from this, but it is what it is, you know, and if I can see why a lot of people like it, I personally it just didn't hit me that way. Alright, so for Trading Places, I give it a Just Joe rating of 3 out of 5. Thank you very much for tuning in to Too Many Movies with me, Just Joe. Look for a new review every single Friday, except when stuff gets kind of weird, but I try to do one every single Friday where I watch a movie from my collection, one that I've never seen before. I got 2 more Christmas movies and then a New Year's Eve movie to finish out 2017, so I'm excited about that. And I've already got January planned out. It's going to be interesting, but you'll find that out in the last video of 2017, the New Year's Eve video. But all the links are in the description below to my Twitter page, my Facebook. Subscribe to Part B1 Productions. Watch every week for these videos. Watch for Too Many Movies at the Movies. Star Wars is coming up in a couple days, and you know, unless something comes up that night after I get home, I will post a review about it. I am so excited, and I cannot wait until Thursday. So, and Christmas is almost here. Should probably do shopping as well instead of doing stuff like this, but this is fun for me. Got my Christmas lights, my Christmas hat, and still in the holiday spirit, even though the movie Trading Places kind of brought me down a little bit. But I think the next 2 weeks will bring me up. So, I got more movies to watch. I'm Just Joe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Coffee. Quiet on the set.